This is the Ace Founder Podcast.
Welcome to the show, Justin. It's an absolute pleasure having you on today.
Thank you for having me. It's really good to be here.
Thank you for coming on. I mean, we connected via LinkedIn, and I was looking into what you guys did, and I thought, you know what, I have to have you on because of your company. I find very interesting. It's amazing that you guys were able to build what I assume is a very big business out of that. But we're gonna dive deeper into that. So, but as I always like to do, or as is tradition in the show, I like to leave it up to my guests to introduce themselves because you're going to do a way better job at it than I do. So could you tell us a little bit more about you and about the work you do?
So I'm Justin, as you've alluded to already. I've been an entrepreneur for as long as I can remember. I've run various different companies. I've got a background in mostly technical companies. So prior to doing what I'm doing now, I had a company that did technical due diligence for people acquiring internet companies, generally between sort of 2 and 10 million. We'd go in and we'd handle all of the kind of technical due diligence that neither your accountant nor your lawyer was able to handle. We exited, the company was acquired in 2016. I then tried a few things that didn't work, which seems to be an ongoing theme of my life. Trying things that don't work to eventually stumble on the thing that does.
Yeah.
I also own a corporate hospitality company, which I've had for many, many years. It's a great company, 20-something people, like a really close-knit team. We're one of the larger sort of privately held corporate catering companies that operate across Greater Manchester. 21 years old now. So it's a company of my children, which is feels like an accomplishment. During the pandemic, we kind of, we went through a period where corporate catering was totally flat. We had to iterate a lot. And when I say iterate, it's a polite way of saying scramble desperately at other business models that might work for us. More than happy to go into those if you ever want me to, but that's eventually how we stumbled upon WellBox, which is the other company I run and operate today. And yeah, that's where I am. I lead growth here, and we're constantly looking at ways we can sort of improve and get better at what we do.
That is so cool, man. That's so cool. You're like the first, do I want to say e-commerce? I guess that's where the category you guys will fall under, or business e-commerce that I've had on. So I'm very, very curious about this. And I love your background, like coming from, different entrepreneurial ventures. Like you were saying, you try different things. I was just resonating with that. That's like my story of my life as well. You just try everything and then, something works. But I really like that. And you talk about the pandemic a little bit. Like, just to clarify, was WellBox around before or after the pandemic?
So there was no WellBox before the pandemic. So the pandemic started, we had South, which is corporate catering. And as I'm sure you can imagine, offices closed down everywhere. So with no one in offices, there's no need for food. So we were trapped in this weird middle ground where a lot of companies that had kind of B2C operations where they were maybe doing food in restaurants or food on delivery or Uber Eats, they blew up around that time because everyone's at home, everyone's using food to get the dopamine they weren't getting from all the other things they couldn't do. But that wasn't our model. That wasn't the kind of food that we did. And at the same time, we also weren't hospitality enough to get any of the hospitality benefits or grants because we didn't have walking customers. So I remember we had, sort of near to 50, 60K a month of costs going out, everything from sort of rent through to vehicle leases. And it was a stressful time, really stressful time. So it really was just a case of kind of going back to where I started, which is just trying things out, seeing things that would work. And I think we tried maybe 3 or 4 different things. One of them was a food delivery startup for people that wanted to lunch at home. One of them was doing chilled meal delivery for other companies that didn't have sort of chilled fleet logistics and wanted to do that on a local level. There are a few ideas that would have worked if they were starting from scratch and ideas in their own right. But like I say, we had around sort of 50, 60K of expenses a month to pay. So whatever we did, we had a pretty high bar to meet within a 2-3 month period in order to make it work and make sense. So I think the last of our desperate ideas was the idea of kind of delivering snacks to corporate companies that wanted to send something physical, something tangible to the staff that they had furloughed or the staff that they had working at home. And I think WellBox was the only thing of those ideas that really hit in a big way or in a significant way. And it kind of led to the company that is the company today. So we're a hybrid between e-commerce and software. We operate a software platform that lets companies store their data securely within the UK, knowing that we're kind of not passing that out to third parties across the world. But we also then handle the warehouses, we handle the physical distribution of those gifts as well.
Wow. So it's not like well, we're gonna dive deeper into WellBox. So it's not like a dropship kind of thing where you
Yeah.
okay. Oh wow.
So I mean,
Really cool.
I guess that's a big part of our business model as well. So a big part of it is working with smaller artisanal British suppliers. So we work with like loads of brands, and I suppose that's one of the coolest parts of the business. We get to work with loads of small businesses around the country, small entrepreneurs, some of whom that we've seen have grown during the pandemic and decided that corporate world wasn't for them. So they're going to start a candle brand or a skincare brand or start a new snack brand. And we work directly with those entrepreneurs. We buy in big volumes, we pay up front, and we use that to get an economy of scale that we then pass on to our clients. And we give them liquidity, so it works for everybody.
That's such a cool idea, man. That's a brilliant idea, and I see how it came with the background, like you learning from your background and everything. So it makes so much sense, man. And could you? I'm always curious. The name. How did the WellBox come about?
Historically terrible at names. So WellBox was. I'm a firm believer in when you start something, spend the minimal amount of time on the things that don't give you validation to begin with. So we had the other company. The other company was called South. We had a logo for the other company. I didn't want to spend any time on branding, designing a logo. For me, it was if I can't make this happen within 3 to 4 days, then we can't move forward with this. And by making it happen, I mean we need sales, we need validation that this thing actually works. So it really was a case of the shortest amount of time to get there. And the name came from sending a WhatsApp out to maybe 8 or 9 people I know and kind of crowdsourcing ideas for names, looking at what domains were available. The domain at the time wasn't available, but a version of it was. The name was, I still think, average at best. But it gave us a way of getting out with something that kind of said what we did. And I wish I had a better brand story right now. I wish I could tell you some story about how it's got some ancient Aztec or like ancient Latin meaning that means thriving and well-being in a package, but it really doesn't. It was just the name that kind of said what we did, was easy enough for us to trademark and kind of got us out there real quick. But I think that was the important takeaway. We rebranded maybe like a year or two in. The funny thing is, for the first 2 years, we were actually just using the logo for our other company. We just changed the word from South to WellBox and kept the collars and kept everything about it because it was just the quickest way to get to market and to validate the idea.
So cool, so cool. I love it. Like it's pretty much like a documentary. Basically, it's like you just figuring it out as you go. So I really like that, man. And obviously, you've been doing this for a while now. How has the how would you describe the experience and the reception? How has it been?
It's been amazing. So we saw like crazy growth within the first year. I think within the first 2 months, we'd already hit 7 figures in revenue. And it was pandemic luck, which I think through a lot of companies thought that that pandemic hype would stay, and I think we were always realistic enough to know that we'd have to make hay while the sun shines, take advantage of what was there at the time, because at some point things are going to return to normal, and all of that
Yeah.
pandemic spending will dip, which it did in 2023. So 2023 and 2024 was kind of a brutal period. But fortunately, we had the foresight to build what we thought was the long-term business, even from then, and really kind of lay the foundations for what is the business we have today, which is growing nicely and appeals to what's current now rather than just playing on sort of pandemic behaviors.
So cool, and that's you're spot on there because a lot of businesses were built or rode on that pandemic hype, and once everything was calm, now the business pretty much crashed. So that's where you guys did was very clever, and I am curious though in terms of your clients, what kind of companies do you tend to work with? Because like we were speaking about before we started recording, like I was thinking you were telling me basically your busiest period is towards the end of the year. So I'm curious, excuse me, what kind of companies do you tend to work with? Are these physical companies or are they online based?
Yeah, so I think that's probably one of the coolest things. So as a relatively new company, we don't do any outbound in that sense. We have no sales team. We hire people obviously to
Wow.
deal with customer inquiries and to deal with inbound. But off inbound alone, we currently operate. I'd say it's just over 87% of the FTSE 250 are our clients or have purchased from us.
Wow.
So that's everyone
Wow.
from all of the major banks, all of the major insurance companies, finance companies, pretty much every like large tech company from Google through to TikTok, most of the car manufacturers, a lot of retail, everyone from Harrods through to house of
Wow.
furniture, energy companies. So we have quite a wide range of companies that work with us. They tend to mostly center around enterprise size companies, so companies with a lot of employees, a lot of teams within the organization. And companies tend to use us, I'd say, split between employee gifting, which is probably why Christmas is the most common time of year. Most companies tend to send physical gifts at Christmas because there's just something better about having something tangible as a show of appreciation. But we also work a lot with marketing teams in companies who use us for sales gifts, prospecting gifts, client retention, or even sort of vendor gifts to say thank you to vendors at the end of the year. So it's quite wide ranging, but we work with a wide range of companies. We work with smaller companies as well. I think the smaller companies for me, that feels like the bigger achievement because we know we're, especially in the case of employee gifts, sometimes we, get feedback and we know we're genuinely making a difference to the people that receive the gifts. We know we can do something important and we can make a sort of significant difference for our clients in that sense.
That is so cool, man. And I'm curious also, how big is your team or how big have you guys grown to now?
So we expand based on the time of year. So our core team is probably 11 people,
Okay.
and we're spread across customer support. We're spread across sort of product development, social marketing. We don't do much on social. That's probably my that's when I say my. I mean our business's biggest skill point, which I'm happy to talk on. But we're trying to get a lot better with social. But being a B2B company, we're primarily sort of below the line paid ads and sort of acquisition in that sense.
Interesting.
And then we have people sort of working on design and then the usual kind of office management and HR functions. But we hire a lot of sort of contractors or temporary sort of labor whenever we need to kind of scale up on the production side. So we operate a relatively lean core team and then scale up the kind of warehousing and sort of operations side in that sense at the time of year when we need it.
Really cool. I understand. It's kind of like with the way the Tesco's and the rest hire more people during that makes sense. And
So
when you work with clients now, do they have an idea like, yeah, I want to give out pens to my best customers, or do you guys work with them to come up with their own gift, or how does that work?
yeah, we do. So where we kind of sit in the market is we tend not to go after anybody that needs something too bespoke, simply
Okay,
because there are agencies that are much better than us when it comes to designing those really bespoke boutique gifts. But
I
we
see.
we tend to sit towards that middle of the market where the client has some idea of what they want and it fits within the sort of norms that we typically do. But we frequently help clients put together gifts for campaigns. Once we know what their objective is, once we know what their budget is, who they're trying to target. For example, a lot of times we'll have clients who will come to us because they're doing outbound sales. They already understand what their ROI is. They understand what it costs for them to get a lead into their funnel using, for example, paid ads or outbound or LinkedIn. we'll help them look at a different process where maybe they'll send a small gift to somebody within the pipeline. So maybe they've got middle of funnel leads that have been to a webinar, but they're struggling to get those leads to convert into actual inquiries. We'll often do that. We'll work with them. We'll figure out a sort of cost for that gift, and we'll help them then monitor the return on investment based on that send out. So we work with people in different ways, and it just depends on that client's objectives and what they're looking for. But we have a lot of solutions to get the job done.
Really cool. And how do you source your suppliers? Is that how you call them? The people that produce the gifts?
Yeah, our vendors.
The vendors.
So we have someone who sort of dedicated full time, and their job is literally just sourcing and purchasing. As a B Corp, which we're really proud of, supply chain is important, and we have to scrutinize who we work with. But I think as a company, in terms of the people who we are and what we want, we tend to try and work with smaller entrepreneurs, people who we can relate to and connect to. We try and work a lot with sort of minority entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurs, and just make sure we have good representation across the gifts that we do. But a lot of it comes from recommendations and word of mouth. So we'll speak to one of our existing customers and they'll tell us about a cool brand that they've used. We'll see something on social and we'll see a brand that's just started up and they're sort of trying to get their name out there. We'd much rather help people who are actively trying to get out there and sort of they have good practices themselves and good ethics, rather than work with huge brands that are already established and everyone already knows. And I don't think they need any help when it comes to discovery.
Very cool. And when say a client uses you guys, I'm curious. What does the end product look like? Is it branded in the client's box, and then the stuff inside is variety, or how does that work?
Yeah, it depends on the client, and I think that's one of those things where it's knowing how to gift, and that's kind of the value that we can provide. So we have a big section of the business that does bespoke and branded. We print a lot of those things here in Manchester. We use eco UV inks. We only use sustainable branded items. So rather than attack the market, there's a huge market for branded gifts and branded products. But I think there are companies that there's a huge company here in Trafford Park that do that very, very well. But they're going to do 3,000 different varieties of cheap plastic pens that have come from somewhere where you can't really verify the supply chain. If that's what a client's looking for, we're not the best person for that. But if someone's looking for something that's high quality, unique, and sustainable, then absolutely. So we offer things like branded packaging, we offer branded products. But I think a lot of our customer base will differentiate between a branded gift that they may send on someone's first day. We do a lot of new starter packs. So when you've got a new hire, you want to make them feel connected even before they've got there on their first day. So you can send them maybe a branded mug and some branded swag before they get to the office. But then you probably want to differentiate between that and sending a client a thank you gift or a new customer a thank you gift, which actually, if you brand it, it may send the wrong message. It might look like more of a marketing or a branding exercise than a synth. I can never say that word. Sincere. I had a list tongue when I was a kid. Sincere attempt to say thank you for the business that they've given you. So in those cases, they tend to go with our sort of WellBox gifts, non-branded, but gifts that are gifts in their own right.
That's such a good point as well, because you have to imagine how the person the receiver would take the gift. So that's very interesting. Wow, you guys do a lot of research into this, into gifting and stuff like that.
We do. So I mean, I'm a huge data nerd, partly based on previous companies and what I previously did. I was doing kind of a lot of data analysis and scraping before AI. Now it's like so much easier. You can just pop something into Claude and you can get the answers you want. But kind of understanding, I think the hard part now is really understanding what story you want to tell, as opposed to just giving all the data and saying, come up with figures, and then you get overwhelmed by what comes back. So for us, data is really important. Data in terms of understanding what people want, where the demand is, and that's like right at the start of the process. So on our website, what gifts do people tend to linger on more? what gifts do people tend to look at more? Where do we get the most inquiries and questions generated? Are there particular products in gifts that people resonate with? We have a bespoke gift builder so we can see which products people tend to add to quotes the most. And we use that to inform the gifts that we then produce next, new suppliers that we look for. But we also look at ways customers are kind of using the app. We look at a lot of analytics around sort of what features customers are using, where customers are getting stuck, what they're trying to do. And we use that to inform what we build in a software sense next too. So yeah, data is really, really important.
Love it, love it. I could see how that will be very important for a business like yours. Like even especially if you want to scale. Like imagine satisfying all these employees and not giving the wrong gifts. I could see how important that could be.
I think
Very interesting.
that's
Yeah.
part of the appeal though in using a gifting platform or a gifting service. Because if you imagine our typical buyer will have maybe anything between average is like 700 kind of people that they're responsible for the gifting for. But that could be anything between on the smallest end, 20 people, and on the largest end, sort of 15, 16,000 people. So that's a lot of people that you need to keep happy. And then someone's
Yeah.
told you you've got like a £50 budget to do it with, because anything over that is a taxable benefit. So you've got a relatively limited budget, but you've also got people who have different dietary requirements. You've got people who are gluten intolerant, that's me, vegan or lactose intolerant or halal, or you've got people that drink, people that don't drink. You've got people that are into food, but people that are on a GLP, is it GLP-1? This Ozempic diet.
Oh yeah, yeah.
By the way, peptides is a whole thing that I've been down a rabbit hole on recently, but that's about to get crazy. But yeah, you've got people who are on all these crazy diets, so maybe they don't want food and they want something that's well-being focused. So you've got all of these different people, and your job is to find a way to keep all of those people happy on a £50 per person budget. That's going to get really difficult. So one of the bits of value a gifting platform provides, and this isn't just us, this is any platform that does this, is being able to have a gifting platform, for example, and give people a wide choice of different gifts rather than just one gift to keep everyone happy. At least giving people the ability to swap the gift that they've been given if that's not the gift.
Yeah.
I think that's the challenge with enterprise gifting. It's finding a way to keep everybody happy.
Yeah, that's such a good. I was actually going to ask, do people have the opportunity to return the gift or something like that? So I guess that clarifies that. That's why sometimes I just prefer to give an Amazon voucher, man. Like that when you give it,
You know what though? It hurts
Yeah,
my soul when, and I
yeah,
don't get me wrong, Amazon is practical, and
yeah.
we do e-gift cards. So I'm
Okay.
trying to choose my words wisely because Amazon's one of our partners, and we sell Amazon gift cards. But just being totally transparent, like I feel if someone gave me an Amazon gift card versus they gave me something that was packed full of food and drink, like I love food, I absolutely love food, I love snacks. If someone gave me like a snack hamper or a food and drink hamper and it's just packed with a load of things I can actually get excited about, I get a little bit of dopamine about thinking about eating all of those things in there versus a £50 Amazon voucher is nice, but then I'm just going to stick it on my Amazon account and I'm probably going to forget that that person even gave it to me.
Give it.
Whereas with the
That is
hamper, I'm seeing that as I'm eating it and I'm constantly reminded of the gesture. And I think that's the problem with an Amazon voucher. It's nice and it works in some circumstances. I think if I was like a participant at a marketing research study, then an Amazon voucher, perfect. But if I was a member of staff here and I just got a gift voucher at the end of the year for Christmas, I think for some situations it works, but for others, I think a gift feels more personal.
so true. Like they all every time they use it. There's a mug I have. Somebody gave me a mug and they put my name on it. So every time I use the mug, it's like I remember the person
Yeah,
kind
it's
of thing.
nice.
So yeah, interesting. I am curious though. When you work with companies of this size, who's your person? Your how do they say your champion in the? Is it HR? Is this under HR or is this who's responsible for gifts in these companies?
So our ICP, I mean, it's a bit of an oxymoron to say we have a split ICP, because I guess your ICP should just be one person, but our ICP is split kind of 60-40 between HR and sales and marketing. So in the one sense, it's someone in HR that's responsible for, sort of the well-being of their staff or their employees, the person that's often looking at, I'd say probably our biggest application is with milestone gifting. So it's figuring out, you have all of these milestone events throughout an employee's lifetime. So everything from the day they join through to it's their first anniversary, their partner's just had a baby or they've just had a baby, they have got married, they have got engaged, they've moved house, they've maybe had a bereavement. So you have all of these situations where you want to send something to that person to say, hey, we're with you, we're here, we're thinking of you, etc. So milestone gifting is probably like a huge one, and for that it's definitely HR. But on the flip side, we work a lot with sales and marketing, where someone's prospecting, they're sending out 50,000 emails and getting a 0.001% reply rate, and they want to know, actually, is there a cost-effective way they can just cut through the noise and connect with more people? So that's the other side and the other types of people we work with. And it's funny because they're both very, very different in their approach. HR tends to be very analytical. Despite being analytical, though, they tend to use much softer, more emotional language. And I think it's part of the job, right? Like if you're working in HR, you're working a lot with people, you care about people's well-being, or I hope you do, or you're a real bad HR person, and this is me being preachy. But they tend to resonate with kind of more emotive language about how this will make people feel. Whereas with sales and marketing, it really is kind of about the ROI, it's about the hard numbers. So we have two different kind of languages, and that's been a really important thing for us, understanding that we have to kind of have almost like a system for speaking to these two different ICPs in two different ways, and making sure that whatever we're putting out resonates with the best practice that we've set up for speaking to those two different types of ICP.
That's so awesome, yeah, and it makes so much sense. I could see, because I'm picturing myself using a company like yours, and I could see if you get it right with the client, that client is likely to stay with you guys for a long time because of it's an activity they keep doing. Why go meet another company and then try and then figure out all this stuff again when you guys have actually cracked it? Very interesting. Awesome. So you've been building this company now. I'm always curious. What would you say has been your biggest challenge to date in terms of building it?
It's funny, if you asked me that question 20 years ago, I would have said staff. Like in every company I've always built previously, staff has been the biggest challenge. And I feel like the last 10 years, I've been really, really lucky. And maybe even the last 5 years, I've been really lucky. We've pretty much had the same team. In fact, we've had the same team that we've had since we started. We've just added people to that. So the team here is amazing. Like they are genuinely the most amazing people I've ever worked with. So for once, staff has not been a challenge. Staff has just been a joy the whole way. I think the biggest challenge has been growth. Like we came out of the pandemic and I had a lot of, because we grew through so fast during the pandemic, there was always a question of whether we raise and scale much quicker, whether we actually stay organic, stay bootstrapped for now at least, figure out what the business is and figure out what we want to do, because in all honesty, we didn't know at the time. Like I say, we started out with this idea of, the original idea was snacks on subscription. We literally got like one person sign up to that. Like nobody wanted snacks on subscription. But it turned out that actually people did want snacks. They just didn't want to subscribe, because even if the subscription is dirt cheap, getting a subscription through an enterprise company is a total pain, but getting a one-off expense, even if you have to raise 4 invoices throughout the year to do it, is relatively easy. So we had so many learnings that changed who we were and what we were as a company. There was that honesty in knowing that actually we're, maybe like a year, 2 years in, we don't know who we are or who we want to be yet. We just have some ideas about how we're going to figure that out, but that's going to take a couple of years to play out. So we can see what this business model looks like outside of the pandemic when there's a lot more stability. We're only just starting to figure that out now, kind of 5 years in. We're only just starting to figure out kind of what that growth looks like, where that growth is coming from, what the scale of this looks like, and what we need to do to get there. So I think, yeah, the biggest challenge is definitely the scale side, not having sort of, millions of pounds of VC money to just go out there and buy up every ad in the space, or to have people constantly prospecting and sending out a million emails in the hope that we'll get our SDRs kept busy. That was hard. Resisting the temptation to do that was also hard. Seeing companies that I knew of friends that started at the same time that did take VC money and went out and sort of scaled real quick. And then you're always kind of comparing yourself, thinking, well, maybe that should have been us. Maybe I made the wrong decision. But then now seeing a lot of those companies struggle, they've got huge headcounts and huge overheads that they were encouraged to go out and get. But when the revenue isn't there, it makes it really hard. Where we're profitable, we've been profitable for a while, and it allows us to take our time and kind of use the money we've got to experiment without the pressure of having to keep investors or a board happy. So I still don't know if it was the right decision, but for my own personal happiness and for the happiness of the team that we've got here, it's allowed us to stay small. I really don't want us to grow much bigger than we are as a core team, because I think we might lose part of the DNA of kind of what makes it special for us being here.
Man, I agree with you, man. I'm always on the side of, VC money is good, but I'd rather do what you guys did because of one, you get to keep control, and I never understood the whole idea of all this scale without making money. Basically, a company is worth 10 billion, but they've never generated any revenue. I've never understood that.
It works in Silicon Valley, right? And don't get me wrong, I think there are situations, like, I understand it, and I think there are situations where you're playing the long game, and I think one of the best stocks that I ever bought way back in the day was Xero, which is our accounting package. And Xero was like a great example of a company that was always undervalued because they weren't making much money, but they were spending pretty much all of that money on marketing and customer acquisition.
I see.
But the thing with an accounts package is I don't know a single person that is willing to change their accounts package unless it's really, really awful, because it's boring, but it's functional and it does the job. And even if you wanted to change your accounts package, I doubt you'd be able to do it mid-accounting year. So you're having to wait for that tiny window where you haven't started adding in all the New Year's stuff, but you're actually done with the end of the year. So churn on account software is like ridiculously low. So in that situation, it's okay for them to make a loss for a long while, as long as that customer base is growing, because the minute they scale back the amount they're spending on customer acquisition, then their profitability will catch up. But I think a lot of companies have taken that a little too literally, or taken it without kind of looking at the underlying business model and just thought, you know what, if we lose money, as long as we keep raising, we'll be okay. And they've never really figured out the unit economics or the business model, which is why I joke about it being a Silicon Valley thing, but I see people do it here too. And I think sometimes it can work very, very well, but you need to have your business model and your unit economics nailed down to make it make sense, right?
Yeah. For me, I'll have more peace of mind than taking somebody's money, knowing that we've not generated any. So for me, even if I did that, at least let's see some money coming in first, and then take some money, and then grow it. But anyway, it's to each their own. I am curious, like, what would you then say is your biggest win? Because you sound like you've got a really good thing going on here. But what would you say has been a moment or a win that has really been like, yes, I've got this?
Biggest win's probably been the team. Like, I have genuinely looked out. Like, I can't say, well, I suppose no. I'd say it's 20% skill and 80% luck. The 20% skill is just from experience. Been in business for 25 years now, and that's a lot of people that I've hired and I've trained and I've worked with, and made every mistake under the sun during that period. Like, when I say to people, like, I've often hired the wrong people, people think I'm talking about it in the sense of I've chosen the wrong person for that job, where there are times when I literally hired the wrong person. Like, I got two candidate CVs mixed up and we gave the job offer to the wrong person. I am that dreadful when it comes to stupid mistakes that I've made in the past. But 25 years is a lot of time to make a lot of mistakes. And I think learning from those mistakes has been part of the reason why we have the team we have today. But a lot of it's just been luck. A lot of good people that were available at that time, a lot of people that have really grown and developed in the job here. So I think, yeah, I'd say that's probably like the biggest win or the thing that I'm most proud of. But I think also as well our resilience. I think there's a stat that more than like 67% of companies in the gifting industry that came up around the pandemic, which is probably one of the the biggest industries to kind of boom around that time, no longer exist.
Wow.
A lot of competitors that we know from around that time no longer exist because 2023, 2024 was brutal. It wasn't just a return to kind of normal behaviors post-pandemic, but it was also the UK economy going through this ridiculous flat point. And it's like we literally couldn't get a break. There was Brexit, and then there was kind of Donald Trump and his tariffs, and then there was like the Strait of Hormuz, or I'm sorry, it was the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal was the prequel to the Strait of Hormuz. Whatever reason why your shipment from overseas is now costing you double and taking twice as long. And there's just been one thing after another, and there's been sort of elections and budgets, and then announcements of budgets that are going to be dreadful, and lack of investment, and billionaires leaving, and all these things in the news that just make you feel like the UK is the worst place to be doing business. And I don't know whether it is or not, but I just know it's not been easy. So yeah.
You are spot on. I mean, UK, they I'm from Nigeria, so if you want to see my background is Nigeria. If you want to see tough place to do business, but the UK,
Yeah.
they do, doing business here it's tough, but the government tends to help you out every now and then. So
I
that's
suppose
cool.
it's a give and take, right? Because
Yeah,
I think I
yeah.
was speaking to a few friends that are running a business in Lagos at the moment, and on
Oh,
the one
okay.
hand, you kind of lack the infrastructure and the regulation. You've just got like all of these they're telling me about some situations that are just crazy. And I'm like, I just can't imagine waking up and that being the situation I need to deal with on that day. But on the
Yeah,
flip side of it, you've probably got like one of the fastest growing economies purely just because of the number of people.
people.
The sheer volume of people, the population density
Yeah,
makes it an opportunity in itself. And I
yeah.
think that's what we're not seeing in the UK, despite the UK being probably one of the most, when the sun shines, the UK is perhaps the most amazing place to
The
live in the
best
world
place
for
to
a
be.
variety of reasons.
Couldn't
Um,
agree more.
and like the economy, even being terrible, is
Yeah,
still way better, I think, for business than a lot of places. Not as good as the US, which we're all jealous of, but it's still a great place to do business and a place that I'm more than happy to be in. But I feel like we've lost that spark, we've lost that growth where you can get into a market and see that market explode. The last time we saw anything even close to that was the pandemic, and that was unfortunately a bubble that came up and then burst again. So yeah, I think there are always advantages and disadvantages, and I think the best entrepreneurs are the ones that find the advantages where they are and kind of work around the disadvantages that they have.
man, you're spot on. You're spoken like a true entrepreneur. Like
Thank you.
you're really in the battlefield. I love that. I always like just two more questions, and we'll wrap up. Yeah, I always want to know. I'm trying to think how AI fits into your company because they say AI is going to take all of our jobs. So, how does the AI fit into? What are your thoughts around it, and how do you guys use it at your company?
You really asked the wrong question if you want to be blunt, because I am that guy that if you're at a party and everyone's doing the polite meet and greet, I'm the guy you don't want to get stuck with if someone says the word AI, because I will bore you for like hours and hours and hours. I mean, AI has made a huge, huge difference in our company, and I've always been a nerd. I was a programmer from sort of my early teens. So I've been programming all
Nice.
my life, writing code all my life, and I feel like we use AI slightly deeper than the average company uses AI, or the
Mhm.
average small business uses AI, just because we have that technical background. A lot of us are technical people. We're developers, even though
Mm.
that isn't our sort of core job. So we use, I mean, gosh, I don't know where to start. So we have a lot of agentic workflows that sit within our own software. So we have a concrete example is we used to have a process of creating a new product and creating that new product with a gift. is slightly more tricky than creating a new product when it's just one item, because with a gift, you've got multiple different brands. You've got multiple different products, so you can't just give that shot to AI and go, hey, recreate this, because it's probably going to mess up something on someone's logo that's subtle to you, but not so subtle to them, and you really don't want to do their product a disservice. So even just the photography part alone has been a sort of slow and convoluted process, so to speak. But we've recently got so much better with that. And I think I wrote a post recently on LinkedIn just talking about how we're now using AI. We've got to a point where we had an AI created shot with all of the different products, and every brand was perfect, spot on. And it looked how we'd want it to look if we took that photograph from scratch ourselves. But we used to have a process where we'd have to take a photo of the product, we'd have to get all of the attributes of that product, all of the descriptions, all of the setup of that product in our front end. We'd have to do all of that setup on the back end. We'd have to do setup in Google Merchant Center. So just for one product, that was taking a person around sort of 4 hours. And we recently built a whole sort of agentic workflow within our own internal tool that's cut that down to around 10 minutes. So it's little things like that, little optimizations and savings. One like very, very recent thing that we've noticed is we developed some products ourselves. And a place where we've been unable to use AI successfully in the past is using AI for things like packaging design. So AI is great with photos, but not so great with vector-based design, which is what you need for kind of packaging design and sort of branding in that sense. But we've recently changed. So we've recently managed to get our first kind of full AI-based packaging design. It looks amazing. We then get, we're using OpenAI for this, but OpenAI to create a script that we run inside Illustrator that creates the full kind of vector artwork within Illustrator that we can just send off to the packaging company and get that packaging created. So it's constantly seeing where we can push the boundaries. It's constantly seeing where we can improve our own internal workflows, but also embedding a lot of that within our software. So for customers, instead of them having to search for ages to find a gift, they can just give us the gist of what they're looking for, and we'll find the perfect gift for them. It's been able to know that rather than have to manage the branding and put all their assets in place to get a fully working gift portal. AI can do that for them. So it's the little things, but also a lot of the internal things that customers don't see that have really made a difference.
Sounds like a full embrace of AI. You're not, on the, we're not touching this camp. really cool.
No, I do everything. I mean, like I say, I could talk for hours on what I'm doing personally as well as in business, but there's a lot to be gained by businesses. If are you familiar with Fable? So Fable is, I mean, it's all over my feed at the moment. I don't know if it's the same for yourself. And there's a lot of things where people are talking about all these things that people have built with Fable. But I think the craziest thing about it is if you know the model before it, which was Opus, Opus is actually capable of building the majority of those things that people are now like, hey, look what I've built with this new model. But I think the only difference is they know that model might become, well, it will become a paid for model rather than one that's included with their plan pretty soon.
Interesting.
And also it's new, there's that novelty. And for the first time, people have started pushing the boundaries purely because of, these two things, the urgency and the fact that they think this thing's way more powerful than the previous thing, which it is. But it was actually a really good experiment, because if people actually push the boundaries with what they have today, they'd be surprised at what they could probably do and get done. And I think with AI, more often than not, we're just not trying to push the boundaries, and we're just not trying to see, actually, could it do a good job of completing this task for us? And I think we'd be surprised if we did.
That's a very interesting point. Because of the guys building it, they are trying to slow down themselves, and the consumers are not. That's a very, very interesting point. Justin, we're coming up to the end of what has been a really awesome chat. I really enjoyed chatting with you and learning a lot more about WellBox. It's amazing what you guys are doing over there. You mentioned LinkedIn, which is always my last question. So I'm always curious, how do you use LinkedIn, and what would you say has been your most effective strategy, or is it still a work in progress for you?
Sadly, is the answer to your first question. So I'm as an entrepreneur, I've never had a job in that sense, so I've never had to use LinkedIn. I literally ignored LinkedIn for perhaps, I think, until around last year. And then last year I decided to kind of update the information and put the information on there just for credibility's sake. I've only just started using LinkedIn in the posting sense, probably in the last 4 months, 3 or 4 months. It is so important right now. I think engagement and attention is everything. And I think we were arrogant enough to think that as a B2B company, we would continue to survive by being good with paid acquisition or content or organic rankings, where actually we're realizing that a lot of that is not going away, but it's eroding pretty quick, and we're going to plateau unless we get good at capturing attention. So I think I'm still right at the start of my journey. So if you're listening to this, please follow me and add to my maybe 7 followers by the time you listen to this. But yeah, I think it's something that I realize is important, and I definitely want to do better. Have you got any tips? You seem to be the guy.
I've got a bunch. I mean, I'm thinking maybe after this I could share some ideas with you, like for your company that is employee. You know, you guys are B2B and employee and all that stuff. LinkedIn is pretty much where you guys need to be. Like employees need to know about. Sorry, HR leaders and even the marketing guys that do marketing. They need to know about WellBox and how you guys, are helping people, like helping your clients. If you had like a case study or more case studies that you could share on LinkedIn, that would be something that could do very well. Because from my experience, what is working now, especially with AI is creating AI slope is all over the place. So, so real stories I'm finding is what's resonating better, because the AI can't necessarily replicate that. So like from this content, you've given some really battlefield stories, which is what I like even. So stuff like that would be what I would recommend sharing more. It's not easy because it's kind of like a full-time gig, to be honest, but it's something that needs to be done. But awesome. After this, I'm happy to share some ideas with you after this. Yeah, and this has been a really, really awesome chat. I've totally enjoyed this. WellBox is, for me, you guys are building something great for such a young company, and coming from the pandemic era to sticking around and grinding it, and coming out of the end of the horrible times. Justin, where can our viewers? Okay, actually, no. If any our viewers listening to this, what's one key takeaway? You've given so many, but what's one thing you would like them to take away from this episode?
It depends on where in your journey you are, but if you're anywhere near the start, just start. Don't obsess over things being perfect or even right. You've got plenty of time to correct it along the way, but just get to whatever validation looks like for you as quickly as possible before you lose momentum.
You see, yeah, that's one of the things, for me, that's one thing I'm going to take away from this, because you guys are pretty much building the plane as you're flying it. So, and for me, that's one of the best kind of business.
Sorry, we're building the train as we're flying it, and then realizing trains shouldn't be flying, and then changing it to a plane while we're midair. That's probably a better example.
And now you started with a train, and now you're flying.
Now we've got a really ugly train plane, but we're going to make it prettier over the next few years. That's the plan anyway.
Oh, Jesus Christ. This has been awesome. Where can our viewers go learn more about you guys? You got a really awesome looking website, by the way. Was it designed in-house, or is that the agency stuff?
Yeah, so mostly in-house. First version was in-house. Middle version, we brought in an amazing designer called Matt. And then the latter part's been in-house. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, if anyone wants to find us, they can find us at wellbox.co.uk, which we now own. We went back and bought that later on. Or if you want to find me personally, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and what's your LinkedIn? We're gonna include that in the show notes. But could you say that for people watching? Is that Justin? How do you say your surname, by the way? Gilchrist.
Gilchrist, Gilchrist. But I'm just laughing because I'm thinking, wait, LinkedIn has handles. I'm today years old when I figured this out, and this is why I need to get better at LinkedIn. But yeah, if LinkedIn has a handle, I'm sure it'll be my name somewhere. So check that out. That sounds awesome. I feel like a total rookie right now. This is a humbling experience. Thanks to this.
We're gonna include all of that in the show. Justin, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been great.